Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in tonight to this information session for the Full Color Print Fellowship at High Point Center for Printmaking. My name is Josh Bindwald. I am the Director of Artist Programs at High Point, and I coordinate this program. So I will be your main contact person for this program at all points of it, really, pre-application, application review process, and afterward. So again, thank you for tuning in. And just briefly, what we're going to talk about tonight is I'm going to introduce you, of course, to the fellowship, um, the eligibility requirements, the benefits of the fellowship, what your application process and decision and the panel process looks like. But I'm also going to introduce High Point itself to you. It's likely that many of you do know about High Point Center for Printmaking, but it's also likely that some of you do not. So I want to make sure that everyone who's tuning in does get to know our organization a little bit better. So we'll start with that part. High Point is a nonprofit arts organization that has been around since 2001, almost 25 years if you're counting. And we exist specifically to support the advancement of fine art printmaking. Our organization supports our mission through four program areas, primarily through four program areas. We have a classroom, a dedicated space that serves learners of all ages, no exaggeration, everything from pre-K all the way up through partnerships with some elder care facilities in the area. We have a gallery space that is our location is right on Lake Street, and the gallery space has floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Street. So it's extremely visible right on Lake Street between Hennepin and Lindale, straight in the heart of Uptown. So again, a very visible space for artwork to be viewed, as well as for our organization to exist. We have a professional print publishing studio at High Point that is called High Point Editions. And what that is it's essentially another print shop under the same roof that has a dedicated team who work with invited artists collaboratively to generate new editions of artwork. And then finally, there is the cooperative print shop at High Point, which is the largest footprint within our organization, and is actually why High Point as an organization was created. Printmaking is very well suited to a cooperative model, sort of shared resources for a common goal. Um, and again, the cooperative print shop at High Point is essentially why we were founded, how the idea first came about was to provide a space for people who enjoy making prints to continue to do so. And in text, here is basically everything that I just covered. Let's talk a little bit about this program specifically. The Full Color Fellowship, the Full Color Print Program is a program for artists from racial and ethnic communities, including but not limited to people belonging to the indigenous communities, Asian and Pacific Island communities, the Somali diaspora, and other African immigrant communities, the African American community, the Latinx community, and other communities identifying as Black, Indigenous, or people of color. These communities historically within High Point have been underrepresented within our co-op studio. So that's why, essentially, to put it very briefly, that's how we came up with this program, was research with a steering committee, many hours of thought and planning and asking questions went into this. Ultimately, what we determined was some of the barriers that exist to joining the cooperative space at High Point and how could we address those. And what we came up with is this program, the Full Color Print Program, and it functions through two approaches. One of the barriers that we identified because because our members in the cooperative studio work independently, it's necessary for them to have some training. you need to be able to prove that I do in fact know how to practice this technique or these techniques that I wish to use at high point. So where this can become a barrier for people is if they are an artist, but they've never really had the chance to try printmaking, whether it be through a class or through just teaching themselves, that in itself is a barrier. So, full color scholarship, which is one aspect of this program, functions in that it provides tuition free access to any high point classes for artists from the BIPOC community. The full color scholarship part of this program is what provides tuition free access to any of our classes so that artists with an interest in printmaking can learn a technique, thereby eliminating one barrier of entry to the co-op at High Point, which is education or knowledge of a print technique. The second part, or the second component of the full color print program, is the full color print fellowship, which is what we're here to talk about this evening. This is an application-based program for artists who already possess some level of skill and experience with one or more of the traditional print techniques. And while this fellowship provides many things, its primary purpose is to provide access and mentorship to the artists who are selected. I want to be clear that a college degree is not a requirement for this program. You don't need to have attended college. You don't need to even have any formal print education. You simply need to be able to show in your work sample and your response to the application questions that you do have experience with one or more of the traditional print techniques. Now let's move on to the benefits of the full color print fellowship. So possibly the biggest, most likely the biggest benefit is 12 months of access to the cooperative print shop at High Point. As you can see in this image and the next few images, I'm going to show you a little bit about our print shop at High Point. It is, as I said, the area of our organization that has the largest footprint. It's approximately 6,000 square feet. It is a extremely well-equipped studio. This is the screen printing area, which is the most popular technique currently at High Point. The co-op has, I believe, 82 members currently, and of those 82, 50 some do screen printing as at least part of their practice. Of course, because these are still images, I can't show you exactly what the entirety of the space looks like, but this is just looking into the screen area. You can see two of our screen printing tables, as well as some of our screen storage and our storage lockers for our members. This is a shot of the lithography area. We have two litho presses, a library of stones that our members can use, as well as a library of rollers and brayers. This, you can see the litho area in the way back there. This is kind of the main part of the co-op. And in the foreground are our intaglio presses. As I said, the shop is extremely well appointed. The only things that we are lacking are a type library and letterpress specific equipment. The good news is, though, being in a metropolitan area, there's a peer organization called Minnesota Center for Book Arts. So if letterpress specifically and book arts are of interest to you, that's a wonderful organization that you should be familiar with as well. And then the other thing that we don't have is what I would refer to as post-digital equipment, like CNC routers, laser printers, things like that. However, being in a major metropolitan area, those things are relatively easy to access if that's a part of your practice. It's just not something that we're able to offer at this time. I am biased, but it is really an incredible print shop, and we hear that all the time from visitors as well. It is truly the heartbeat of High Point, not only because of its location, but because of how many artists it serves. Each member is given a storage locker and a flat file to keep their materials, and they have access to the space from 8 a.m. until midnight virtually every day. very few exceptions, exceptions being things like if we have to close for an exhibition opening or some other event. But we really do our best to minimize interruptions to the artist access. So as a full color fellow, um, you are essentially a co-op member in all rights and privileges. The only major difference between a full color fellow and paying co-op member is just that paying. Full color fellows, much like our McKnight fellows and our Jerome residents, that's one of the primary benefits of the program is access to the print shop without having to pay. Another big benefit of this fellowship is the artistic and professional mentorship. Now, for the mentorship component, we will work with the fellows to determine what and how they would like to receive the mentorship. This part of the program is very malleable to fulfill the artist's needs and desires. It's quite open-ended. Yeah, I mean, really, once the fellows are selected, they work with me. They complete an intake form, and we have a conversation. And I try to get the ball rolling on pairing them with people and resources that would be advantageous to them at this point in their career. And so far, 3 years into it, the mentorship has taken a number of different forms. It hasn't looked the same yet. Much like the full color scholarship component, as a full color fellow, you also have access to technical support, includes individual instruction. Artists also get a cash award, $500 stipend that they can use for anything that they see fit. There is no budget requirement, no budget proposal when applying for this program. Our fellows also get access to any of our printmaking classes tuition free. Essentially, the benefit that the full color fellowship component also applies to the people who are selected as the full color fellows. I'm sorry, I meant to say the full color scholarship. I get my IPS mixed up. The full color scholarship benefits are also available to the full color fellows. So any of our printmaking classes that they want to take, they are able to sign up for tuition free. The only stipulation is that they need to sign up before the class fills. And then there are also exhibition opportunities within High Point and in some cases elsewhere. And finally, following the completion of the fellowship year, for 3 years or 36 months following that fellowship year, access to the studio is deeply discounted, all the way down to a rate of $50 per month. So hopefully by bringing people through this program, their experience is good enough that they would want to continue printmaking and want to continue printmaking at High Point, thereby making it a more equitable, welcoming space for people from every community. There are a number of other benefits as well. In these pictures here, you'll see a few things happening: exhibition tours, visits to other institutions locally, artist talks. Occasionally there's like extracurricular dinners and meals that can happen with visitors, etc. So there's a lot more that's probably too numerous to mention here and is kind of specific to each fellowship year, what's taking place that year, but there are a great number of benefits. So let's talk a little bit about the eligibility now. So in order to apply for this program, you have to be at least 18 years of age. Applicants need to possess basic understanding in at least one of the traditional print techniques, such as screen printing, relief, monotype, intaglio, lithography, etc. And the way they're going to demonstrate that basic understanding is through their work sample and secondarily through their responses to the prompt questions, which are coming up. Applicants must reside in Minnesota for the duration of the fellowship, and applicants must be able to commit to a year-long fellowship that takes place in Minneapolis. You are not required to live in Minneapolis or St. Paul. Actually, one of our fellows currently lives outstate by a couple of hours. Proximity to High Point is going to make some of the benefits of this fellowship a little bit easier to take advantage of, particularly the studio access component, but we are not limiting this to Twin Cities artists. If you feel like you're able to commit to a fellowship and take advantage of the resources it avails, and you're living, an hour or two or more away from High Point, then that's fine. We're not going to eliminate you from consideration just for that. However, we do not have like a housing stipend or a travel stipend for our fellows. So if you are living outstate and you're having to travel to and from High Point to use the studio, unfortunately, that's going to have to be paid for by you as the fellow. You could, of course, use your stipend toward that, but there's no additional money available at this time. The responsibilities of the artist are that they will take part in a studio orientation that also covers our health and safety guidelines and our artist cooperative policies. They take part in that orientation and they agree to adhere to those guidelines. They'll be expected to participate in scheduled mentorship sessions, and that shouldn't really be a problem because the fellow is going to have a great deal of say in when those sessions take place. I mean, I'm not just going to schedule them for the fellow. It's complete opposite. It's going to be scheduled based on the fellow's availability. But if they are going to be required to like fulfill their, I guess, commitments that they create in regards to that, they are expected to participate in a program evaluation following the fellowship year, and that evaluation includes our steering committee members who will be present to hear about their experience and ask additional questions. And artists are expected to participate in at least one High Point event per year, such as participating in one of our member exhibitions or giving an artist talk or volunteering at a free ink day. In most cases, artists are going to do multiple of these things, but it's just a requirement that they do at least one. They're not heavy lifts, any of those things. Particularly the co-op member exhibition, all that the fellow needs to do is submit work on time. Now, let's talk about the application process. So High Point uses Submittable. Hopefully some of you are familiar with that. It's an application portal. It's very easy to use for applicants as well as for administrators like us. A link to the application process is in High Point's website. Very straightforward. If you encounter any issues, I would welcome you to reach out to me right away and I'll help you through them. But to date, we really haven't had any issues at all. It works pretty well. So that's the only way that we accept applications. I should be clear about that. They must come through the Submittable portal. The first part of the application is general info. You're just going to give us, your name, your address, phone number. We also ask for demographic information. We ask that for all our programs. In all cases, people are able to decline to state or decline to answer any of the questions, but as a nonprofit, data is extremely important. It helps us to tell our story. It helps us to know ourselves, where we're meeting, where we're exceeding, where we're falling short of our mission and our strategic plan. But again, it's also really important for us to tell our story to our funders and our supporters. It actually really is important that we collect as much information as possible. So that's the first part. The next part are these prompt questions. So in lieu of writing an artist statement and a resume or things like that, it's actually just a series of 8 questions that we ask our applicants to answer however they see fit. It can be very conversational. And you're also able to answer these questions in writing or in the form of an audio or video recording of yourself responding to these questions. We'll walk through the questions. Many of them are very basic. First one is, how were you introduced to printmaking? The second one is, what printmaking technique or techniques do you have experience in? The third question is, have you encountered any barriers to making prints and or learning printmaking techniques? Number 4 is printmaking currently part of your artistic practice? Why or why not? Number 5, are there any printmaking techniques that you want to learn more about? What are they? Is there anything preventing you from learning more about these techniques currently? Number 6, please tell us about your artistic background. What type of work do you make? What themes and ideas do you like to explore? Why are these themes and ideas important to you? Number 7, how would participation in this program benefit you as an artist? And finally, please describe your motivation and ability to commit to a year-long artist fellowship. So those are the questions. These are posted in several places. They're on the application page on our website, they're on the FAQ on our website, and they're also in the submittable application process. So there's no mystery there. Now to talk about the selection process. So applications will be evaluated by our review panel. Our review panel consists of two people who are artists themselves or arts professionals or people with, I guess the best way to say would be they're arts professionals of some kind. And of course, we don't make their identities public until after the selection process, but there's always two people on the panel, and at least one of the panelists is very printmaking knowledgeable. Sometimes they both are, but at least one of them will be printmaking knowledgeable. So the first thing that's going to happen is our panelists for a period of time will review your applications remotely, independently, and they're going to be using a scoring rubric during that initial review. I'll talk a little bit more about the scoring rubric in a second. And then following that initial review, the panelists will come together in person for a final review, and at which point they will also deliberate and make a selection on who they'd like to award the fellowship to. Also important to point out that both of the panelists are going to be from one or more of the communities that this program is intended to reach, those communities which have historically been underrepresented within the cooperative studio at High Point. This is the scoring rubric itself. So you can see there's 5 points. The panelists during their independent review are going to assign a numerical score, 5 being outstanding or excellent or, exceptional, and 1 being the opposite end of that spectrum. So a higher score is going to mean that the application was reviewed more favorably. So the first criteria is going to be the strength of the content / concept informing the images submitted and the supporting responses. So supporting responses being the written or spoken answers to the prompt questions, the visual strength of the submitted images, the potential for artistic, conceptual, and/or technical growth as demonstrated by images and supporting responses, the potential for professional growth as demonstrated by the responses, and finally, the motivation, ability to commit to a year-long fellowship as demonstrated by the responses. The scoring rubric is not ultimately what determines who is awarded the fellowship. Rather, it's just a initial tool that the panelists are using. I like to say it's helping them to sort of organize their thoughts during their initial pass through. They're going to assign scores based on these criteria, but ultimately in-person review, they might decide, I didn't give this person great marks compared to these other applicants, but, I really think they're strong because of this or that. I'm speaking hypothetically here, but what I'm trying to say is the rubric scores actually have no official bearing on who is selected. Rather, it's a way for the panelists to, again, organize their thoughts and come into the conversation, that final review and deliberation, with some ideas already being formed. But using a numerical scoring rubric also enables us to provide pretty concrete feedback to you as the applicants on how your applications were received. Here is the timeline for the fellowship. So the applications are due 1 month from today, Wednesday, July 30th by midnight. And then the review will take place over essentially the next month plus. We will notify applicants by September 8th, which is a Monday, and then the artists who are selected for the fellowship will begin the fellowship on October 1st, and the fellowship will run through September 2026. Again, here are those prompt questions. Take a screenshot of this if you want to, but like I said, they're very easy to find on our website as well as our FAQ. Again, here's that scoring rubric. This is also very transparent, easy to find on our website. Some more resources. There's the web address for the fellowship page, as well as a web address for the FAQ. I would like to show you guys on our website where to find some stuff. So this should be pretty easy to do. Get my stupid picture out of here. If you go to our website, and you've got drop-down menus at the top, artist programs, full color print program. Talks a little bit about much of the information I've said today, what the program is. There again is the timeline. Get this out of here. The benefits, responsibilities, eligibility, application process. Again, there are the prompt questions. Talks a little bit about the work sample, which I guess I forgot to mention that specifically, so now's a good time to do that. It's going to be 10 images of recent work. At least 2 of the 10 must contain some form of printmaking. So if you click apply now, it's going to take you to our submittable application. Again, much of the information is just reiterated verbatim, and then you're going to click apply. The good news about submittable is it will save your application. So you can work on it for 20 minutes and then go eat dinner or whatever and come back to it. It's going to save your application. So no need to like fret over getting everything done at the same time or, oh shoot, I forgot where this image was or anything like that. And then the other thing I wanted to show you is we have this full color print fellowship FAQ. So this is going to have questions that I'm often asked about applying for the fellowship. Do I need to live near Minneapolis? Who's this fellowship for? What would be required of me? Who reviews the applications? How are the applications reviewed? How does the selection process work? Etc. How should I prepare my images? How should I choose images? I would really encourage you to look over this FAQ as you're preparing your application, especially if you're a first-time applicant. In addition to that, email me. You have any questions, send me an email. I'm easy to find. Josh at highpointprintmaking.org, right there. Send me an email. I'll respond. And yeah, we'll help you get your application in as good a shape as it possibly can be. So thank you all for joining me tonight, and I look forward to seeing your applications.